Hello guys, this is Jesus Oncer here, back at it again with a new video, and today I'm going to be ranking the top games of the decade. So we're going to start from bottom to top, so we're going to start at number 10. At number 10 we have none other than Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Definitely one of the best fighting games, well, the best fighting game of this decade. It brought together all characters from a lot of different Nintendo games, a lot of different games in general, and it definitely did um, exceed expectations by a big margin. Is definitely the best fighting game of this generation. Definitely really hyped up. And one of the biggest factors that played into it, the game being so good and so successful, was the fact that it was on the Nintendo Switch, a portable console that you could take anywhere with you. And the fact that you were able to play with separate Joy-Cons was incredible. You could just play the whole game with one Joy-Con. So the Nintendo Switch has a total of two Joy-Cons. So if you wanted to play with a friend, you would just take both Joy-Cons out, you would play with one and then you will give the other one to your friend. And that way you could play 1v1 anywhere you want at any given moment in time. So a lot of people will go to school and they would take their Switch and they would play tournaments, or they would play with their friends one-on-one, and all that stuff. And that's what made the game so popular and what made it so good. The ability for you to play it anywhere you want with anybody that you want was just spectacular, and the game itself was just amazing. The character selection is incredible in the game. The fighting is incredible. The gameplay is just out of this world. They definitely capitalized on the previous Super Smash Bros. Game. Definitely the best Super Smash Bros. Games of the century, and easily cracks the top 10 of the decade. Next up, we have a really good game from Sucker Punch, and it is Infamous Second Son. Definitely the best Infamous game that came out this generation. Um, it was just incredible, the story behind it, the gameplay elements, how you evolved as a character, and how you were able to connect with each single character in the game. The story that was told was definitely amazing. And this is a kind of a pattern with Sony Studios, or their ability to make great stories is just unmatched, and they definitely nailed it with Infamous Second Son, a very underrated game, one of the best games this generation for sure. It makes number 9 here at the top games of the century. Definitely a really great game. The gameplay is great, the story is great, the narrative is great, the direction the game takes you in is amazing, and definitely just one of those games that will be an experience that you would definitely want to have, because it just takes you to a whole nother level, and it shows you a lot of different things that many games do not show, and it definitely deserves a spot here at our top games of the decade. At number 8 we have another game from Nintendo, and this time we have Zelda Breath of the Wild. This is definitely one of the best Zelda games ever created. Obviously there were some really great ones created back in the Nintendo 64 and along the way, but this is definitely in the top of the Zelda games out there. Link goes on a great adventure this time, and just the graphics on this game are just incredible, and again the portability with the Nintendo Switch really made this game stand out even more. The story that was told was great. The gameplay elements were just out of this world. Definitely deserved Game of the Year that year that it won in 2017. One of the best games this generation for sure, but one of the best games of the decade. And it's just something that you have to play in order to know why it truly is that great. One of the best games for sure that I've played. It definitely deserves a spot here on our top games of the decade. At number 7 we have the first Red Dead Redemption that came out. Now Red Dead Redemption would probably be higher on you guys' list, but because of all the great games that have come out, I couldn't put it any higher, and this was the best spot for it. Again, Red Dead is just a great story. It definitely makes even more sense after playing the second game, that fall, the prequel, and this game is just a masterpiece within itself. Definitely a 10 out of 10 everywhere you go. A masterpiece, there's nothing more to say. It's just definitely a great game. The story being told again is really great. The gameplay is great. The DLC with the zombies is amazing. The ability that you have in the Wild West with the horses and the language that everybody uses, and the environment, it just feels so realistic, and it definitely feels like you're in the West, the old Wild West. And just the story with John Marston and how everything that he goes through with his wife, and how he needs to go and fight his old gang members, It was just incredible, and it definitely took you to a journey that somebody could experience in real life at that point in time. And it definitely felt realistic, and it definitely makes our top games of the decade list. At number 6, we have another game by a Sony studio, and this time we have Uncharted for a Thief's End. Oh my god, this game I freaking loved so much. I beat this game like 3 times. I was trying to go for the platinum trophy and I couldn't get it because it's just so hard. But definitely the best game I've personally played this decade. Um, Story wise, like this game's story was incredible. It took me to places that I've never been before while playing video games. I cried, I felt bad for people, I felt hyped up for certain things that happened, and the ending was just so cultivating. It was so pleasing. You finally got the end that Drake deserved, and it felt great because you actually knew that the story truly ended the right way, the correct way, the way it was supposed to end, the way it was meant to end. And if you've played all the previous Uncharted games, this game will feel even better. I know that they had issues with the direction of the game, and the person who made Uncharted 2 and 3 did not make the story for the fourth one, so it was kind of different. They had to rewrite it a couple times. But definitely, whoever wrote it was a great writer because they wrote an amazing story, and the direction that the game took was definitely a great one. Great game, one of the top games of this generation for sure. One of the It was definitely the best game in the world that the year that it came out, and for sure it definitely deserves a spot here in the top games of the decade. At the middle of our list at number 5, we have The Witcher 3. Definitely one of the best games for sure of the century and definitely of the decade. This game was incredible. Oh my god. The story is just so interesting how this guy is looking for his wife. She just disappeared one day and now he goes into this quest to try to find her. Definitely a really interesting story and definitely something that is something that you want to keep following, something that you want to know more about. And that's when obviously the top thing of this game, the story and the journey that he goes through while looking for his wife. Um, Next up, obviously the gameplay is great, and it's kind of in a medieval setting, and you get to play with all these type of things. There's dragons, all these type of animals. You could ride the horse, obviously, and there's a variety of different weapons. You could create a lot of different potions and all of these. It definitely has a lot of great elements. The RPG style of game is definitely great. Definitely deserves a spot here on our top games of the decade. Next up at number 4, we have none other than Red Dead Redemption 2. There's nothing else to say about this game. One of the most impressive things of this game actually are the visuals. Oh my goodness, the visuals are incredible. I was unfortunate enough to play this game on an Xbox One X when it first came out at 1440p, high settings, obviously, whatever settings the Xbox One X runs at, but it looked amazing. This game looked great, and it definitely left me stunned when I first saw the game, when I saw everything, the visuals, the cinematic, and then you get an amazing story with it. And then if you play the first Red Dead Redemption game, everything connects, everything makes sense. You get to see a lot of the gang members, you get to see how they act, you get to see everything, and it's incredible. You get to see the downfall of Dutch and when he first started going rogue and everything that led to that. And you definitely get to see another side of John and when he first started building his family and when everything that happened with that. Amazing, amazing, amazing. For sure, one of the best games of the decade for sure. Definitely, if you tell somebody about Red Dead 2, they're definitely gonna know. A lot of people played it. People that don't play these type of games actually picked it up because of how great it was, how great the reviews were, and how many people were talking about this game. Um, and yeah, it's just definitely a great game. Definitely a game that is worth picking up. And yeah, it definitely deserves a spot here on our top games of the decade. At number 3, we have yet another Sony studio produced game, and it's God of War. God of War, easily probably the best puzzle game that I ever played, and it's not supposed to be a puzzle game. So that tells you a lot of how good this game is. The puzzles were amazing. Um, the story was great, and it just shows a lot about bonding. Obviously, it's a kind of a bonding story, and it takes you into the um the story of Kratos and how he bonds with his son. His son and him didn't really have a connection before, and they just it was just father and son, whatever, just a regular father and son relationship. Then when the mother died, they had to go and spread her ashes in where she wanted them to be spread at. And throughout the journey of him getting to where he needed to go, he bonded more with his son. His son helped him out more. His son learned a lot of secrets about Kratos and how powerful he truly was, and it was just incredible. Kratos definitely was showing his son the way and how things were done and how he wanted him to be when he grew up. But then later on, he learned that his son was really intelligent and that he knew a lot about a lot of things. He knew different languages that Kratos did not know, and because of this, Kratos' son was able to help him complete some of the tasks that they had to complete during the journey. Definitely great game. The adventure was great. The difficulty was oof. It was a great difficulty. The game was great. It was just oof. It was definitely one of the best games of this decade for sure. Up there. Definitely deserves the number 3 spot. Now, this has to be said before anything. Number 2 and 1 could be changed. It's like more of a 1A and a 1B situation because these games are both amazing. At number 2, I'm going to have to put The Last of Us because GTA has a little edge and I'll talk about that later. But The Last of Us is just simply the best story game ever created, period. Definitely the best story game ever created. Think about this. This guy, he made a game based on a fungus that spread, and the fungus spreading caused an outbreak, and this outbreak caused the world to go mad, and a lot of people to be infected and a lot of people to just lose conscious. Now after this, it's just a lot of goes on. You get a little time stamp of when the outbreak actually happened to later on in the future, and then you meet this girl that you know nothing about, and you have to take her somewhere so they could do some studies on her because she's immune. And then along the way, you bond with her. You figure out that she's innocent, that she was born in this world that was completely different, and she's never going to experience things that normal girls are supposed to experience. You bond with her. You lost your daughter, so you think of her as your daughter, and at the end when you're supposed to give her away, you just can't because you just bonded so much with this girl and you love her so much that you could just not let her go. And yeah, that's basically The Last of Us. It's just an amazing story, great gameplay elements, great survival gameplay elements, and implementations as well. Definitely the best story game of this decade, and probably the best game in terms of you having to craft items and you having to go scarce with certain items and things like that. Cannot wait to see what they do with The Last of Us Part 2 because the first one was definitely the best story game of the generation. No cap. At number 1, we have none other than boring old GTA 5. GTA 5 and The Last of Us came out the same year, 2013, and this was a year that brought us the best 2 games of the generation, no doubt. The best 2 games of the decade, no doubt. This game, oh my goodness. Where to start? The story is amazing. You get to switch between 3 different characters and you live the life of these 3 different characters. You experience events through the views of these 3 different characters and experience these events in 3 different ways. You get to do missions and change in between these 3 different characters between the missions, and you get to see each single type of point of view from each single one of the characters. Also, the story is amazing. It just tells a great story, and they definitely have connections with previous GTA games, which makes the story even better because if you kind of knew things from older games, you kind of saw these connections and were like, wow, look what they did, look what Rockstar did, wow, amazing. Then also another thing was they had this thing called GTA Online, which is probably the biggest online thing ever created. We're talking multitude of different players could go and do whatever they want in a game. Yeah, that's what GTA is. You could do races, you could do anything imaginable. You could go on heist stack money to buy expensive cars, stack money to buy expensive houses, do anything that you could possibly imagine with your friends, customize a car with music, and go on a music show. Anything that you could possibly imagine, you could do it in GTA Online. And that's why it has to go on top of The Last of Us, because GTA Online is like a whole separate game. And you're getting two games in one. You're getting GTA Online, which is incredible, and then you're getting the story, which is 10 out of 10, a great story. So yeah, GTA is just simply the best game of this decade. One probably gonna go hands down as the best game of ever created, and definitely up there. Obviously, the story is not better than The Last of Us, but everything else is, and it has a great story as well. So that's why it's the best game of the decade. Don't at me. Peace out. This was the Wanser, and I will see you guys next time.